If Attorney General Bill Barr thought it would be an easy power move to oust the now former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, I think it's fair to say he missed the mark. Late Friday night, Barr sent out a news release announcing that U.S. Attorney Geoffrey Berman was stepping down and that Trump intended to nominate the current chairman of the SEC to take his place. The only problem? Someone forgot to tell Berman, who said in a statement a couple of hours later, "I learned in a press release from the Attorney General tonight that I was, quote, stepping down as U.S. Attorney. I have not resigned and have no intention of resigning." He also said he intended to ensure the office's important cases continue unimpeded, likely alluding to a slate of cases that have been politically damaging for the president, including the one against two associates of his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, who were wrapped up in the impeachment investigation, and another into a state-owned bank in Turkey, a foreign ally of the president's. Oh, and then there's the potential of a future indictment against Giuliani himself. In the end, Berman did step down, after all, as the president pleaded the fifth on everything.
That's all up to the Attorney General. Attorney General Barr is working on that. I'm not involved.
Well, the White House later admitted he was involved, which is not exactly a surprise after Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, shared some of the details of that Turkish bank investigation in his new book and spoke to ABC's Martha Raddatz about it all.
The president said to Erdogan at one point, look, those prosecutors in New York are Obama people. Wait till I get my people in, and then we'll take care of this. And I thought to myself, and I'm a Department of Justice alumnus myself, I've never heard any president say anything like that, ever.
I'm joined now by the former U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts, Carmen Ortiz, who served under Barack Obama and successfully prosecuted Jahar Tsarnaev and Whitey Bulger, among others. She's now with Anderson and Krieger, LLP. Carmen, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Jim. Nice to see you again.
Any question in your mind that Berman is out of a job for political reasons?
No, not really. The timing of it all. I mean, quite frankly, he was leading a stupendous office if you credit independent investigations that are very important, high profile. But he went after the wrong target. And you have the president's allies and you have an attorney general who really wanted him to step down. And I think there was some discussion of him accepting another position, but there was no discussion of him actually resigning. And in turn, he made a bad situation worse.
I know it's hard to judge from outside, but you've been in it inside. Is it reasonable to assume that the walls may have been closing in on Rudy Giuliani and that may have been the provocation?
That's always a possibility, but there were a lot of different scenarios that are being talked about. And I think that, there have been some time in which maybe Geoffrey Berman was more independent than they anticipated. Because at the end of the day, it was President Trump who appointed him. And there were these other ongoing investigations, not just with Rudy Giuliani. There's been nothing said, but remember some time ago, they immunized the accountant and financial advisor for the Trump companies. And that's been kind of a very quiet investigation, as well as in these other matters. But the reality is they're now left with the deputy U.S. attorney, Andrea Strauss, and she's a career prosecutor, and these cases will continue to move. I don't see how they can really intercede.
This Bolton thing, I don't know if you saw the interview last night, but the thing we just played, I'm watching this totally incredulous. Essentially, what the President of the United States is telling the guy who runs Turkey, sit tight, as soon as I can put my people in that office, don't worry, we'll put the kibosh on the investigation, the prosecution of this state-owned bank. That is what, assuming Bolton's telling the truth, that is what the President of the United States said. What was your reaction to that?
My reaction is that the president probably said that because he thinks it, but that's not the way things operate, either through the Department of Justice or the U.S. Attorney's Office, where you're also dealing with career, experienced, talented federal prosecutors. Now, in this particular case, you do have an attorney general who seems to continuously interfere with respect to the Roger Stone matter, interceding on the sentencing of career prosecutors, on the Flynn matter. recently moving to dismiss that case and now waiting to see what a judge is going to decide and how that case will actually be handled because couldn't just simply dismiss it without leave of court. And now interfering again in this situation without there being any specificity to it.
But Carmen, when you said a minute ago that's not how it works, that's exactly how it works in this administration. If it turns out you don't do what Trump wants and what the Attorney General wants, then the Attorney General takes over your case, as happened in the Flynn case you mentioned. And if you didn't do what he wanted you to do, he does it himself.
Exactly. And we're very, very fortunate that we have other prosecutors, that we have judges that do operate independently, that do operate with integrity. And so, I think right now, for example, they wanted to ice out Berman and put in Jay Clayton, who's never had any...
The guy from the SEC.
From the SEC chairman. But now, given that Berman decided to kind of out everything, it's going to look really bad if they remove Ms. Strauss from that position. I don't think they're going to be able to.
Is it, did you ever feel any political pressure from the Attorney General or the President of the United States when you were the U.S. Attorney here? Political pressure, not direction on a legal matter, but political pressure from above?
I know exactly what you mean, and I am gratified to say that I never did. And quite frankly, I think, Jim, last time I was on your show, I spoke about this. It was during the Roger Stone sentencing. I told you it's very unusual for the White House to have any communications with attorneys at the Department of Justice, or there to be any kind of real interference. That's unheard of.
But when you said a minute ago there's independence, and we talked about Barr's intervention here, if you're a U.S. attorney now, I know you're not, but if you're a U.S. attorney now, and you know the President of the United States sees everything through a political prism, does that not have a chilling effect on the ability of even the best U.S. attorneys, because they're looking over their shoulder to do their job independently and with honor?
You may be looking over your shoulder, but at the end of the day, I think we all strive to do our jobs with a degree of integrity and really work really hard to follow the rule of law. And so I think while you may be aware of that pressure, at the end of the day, I know if I was the U.S. attorney, I would really strive, and I would do, I believe, what is in the best interest of law in a particular case, and not because I'm feeling pressure, in particular where you're investigating friends and political allies of the President of the United States.
Is it fair to say that Bill Barr is corrupt?
It appears that the decisions that he is making have that corrupt element. And the judge just recently said that in the Flint case. And they also indicated it, I forget which other, the Mueller, how initially when the Mueller report came out, it was Judge Walton indicated that he was going to take a separate review because he felt that the statements that Attorney General Barr had made were misleading and really
Should he be impeached? Should he be impeached? Should he be impeached and removed?
I don't believe there's any process in our Congress right now, Jim. You saw with the recent impeachment where that went.
Carmen Ortiz, last question from me. Why should a person watching this show have confidence that the U.S. attorney's offices around this country will treat them fairly when they've heard the stories of, as we said, Flynn and Stone and Jeffrey Berman? Why should they have confidence that they'll be treated fairly?
I think because those decisions are being made from the particular administrative leaders that we have. But don't forget, the Department of Justice, as are the U.S. attorney's offices throughout this country, are full of experienced and career prosecutors that really strive to do their jobs with integrity, to get it right, and to do what's in the best interest of this country and the Constitution.
I hope you're right. Carmen Ortiz, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. Good to see you.
Be well. You too.